All right, so here's the thing, man. With the Teaching a Rockstar podcast, in that seat right there, or this seat, and sometimes we switch back and forth. Brother, everybody that we have had on the show has reached some level of success in their life. Man, it might be financial success. It might be in education. We've had, we had a hypnotist on the show. We've had, and the thing is, when we find somebody that has reached a certain level of success, and we go back and we look at this like timeline that led up to it, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, there's some congruency there with all their stories. Typically, they did well in school. Typically, they had two parents that were both supportive, stayed together, and they're doing this traditional family thing. Typically, they went to high school and they were involved in stuff. School made sense to them. They learned in a style where they were able to sit in a chair for long periods in alphabetical order and do what they're told and not ask questions.
And color inside the lines.
Yeah, the whole thing, right? And so, and because of that, because they fit the mold of school, not necessarily the school fit them, and both maybe, but because of that, they've able to reach some sort of success. And that's the thing. That's why you're here. You're successful as well. You're successful at your thing. And like you found your passion in life, and you've been successful in poetry years ago. And I know you have you ever seen my daughter?
Oh, I did. I saw her sacrificial slam piece the other day.
She'll slam it down.
Yeah, that was cool.
I know. And so you did your spoken word, even feature on HBO, I read at one point.
I was trying out for a couple things that they were doing.
Yeah.
Didn't actually end up on HBO, but it came close.
There you go. And you've been successful in yoga, and you're doing your parkour thing in the IT business, and you've been, done some corporate training around the world. Mm-hmm. But the difference with you, brother, is that story that led up to where you are right now in the beginning years, I feel is very different than the typical successful person who's doing what they love and have found a way to follow their passion and make some money at it.
Probably.
Yeah. So that's why you're here, because my goal is with this podcast is when we met for lunch months ago and chatted it up at the Cafe Express over a couple of burgers. Mm-hmm. Man, you had this story that I heard that it was like the tip of the iceberg, and I kind of chopped it off right there because I wanted to save it for now. Because my hope is, there's going to be some teacher that watches this and sees you or hears us talking about it, and as kids come into the classroom in the first week of school next year, and on the first day, and as they come,
that kid.
Every kid comes through the door, a teacher's going to get like this emotional trigger, this feeling about that kid. And some kids come in, they have cute little outfits, and they sit in the front row and they can't wait. And, and that kid, and they have back to school supplies and can't wait to use them, and stuff's color coded. And then there's other kids that come in, no backpack, got the black hoodie on. They take the seat closest to the door in the back row. Yeah. And their teachers, when they see that kid, they think, ugh. 9 months with that one.
Got another one of those.
9 months. And so what I hope today is what we can instill in the minds and hearts of some educators is, that kid that might be sitting in the back row, there might be something special within that kid. And you know what? Maybe we're not going to see like this dramatic change in the life of that kid, but maybe what we can do is just plant some seeds. Because if we can make, like we talked about earlier, what we want as teachers, man, or as just people in general, we want change. We want people we want to help people. And we would love to have this monumental mountaintop experience of revolutionizing a kid's life.
Yeah, of course.
And see that overnight transformation. But in reality, rarely does that happen in the classroom. But even if it's the tiniest speck, I'm talking like a grain of sand on the beach.
Yeah, man.
That one little grain. Because you never know. Because over time, now we've put this kid on a new path, just like you. At some point in your life, got on a different path. Because, brother, you're on one path.
Yeah, for sure.
And there was a little change. And over time, now you're like in a whole different universe from where you started.
Yeah, I mean, almost the opposite of most things you described in the ideal stretch of a typical success story, I guess you could say. divorced parents.
Hang on, we're gonna get to it. Hang on, let's get the show started. We haven't even got the man. That's the thing, guy like you, we get right into it, and we man, we have to do the official music and give Lang Freeman some credit. Lang Freeman from Sounds Under Radio, man. If you don't know about that guy and what he does, he lives in Austin, Texas, makes some amazing music, great records, and I just don't give this guy credit enough. Is just awesome enough to let us use some of his music on our show. So if you ever get on iTunes, download some Lang Freeman and Sounds Under Radio stuff. You'll love it. You also hear their music on Vampire Diaries and some Superman soundtracks and things like that. Let's get this baby going. Yeah. Cameron Pratto in the house. Here we go. We are officially rolling. Now it's official. It was sort of official before.
Yeah, it's plenty to talk about.
You know it, baby. Teaching a Rockstar podcast. Cameron Pratto in the house. All right, here we go. 8 starts. The summer tour starts tomorrow at 6 a.m. I'm getting dropped off at the Hobby Airport, me and a whole bunch of cases full of gear, and we're heading out to Louisville. I've been working on my pronunciation of that city for about 2 years now. And I'm going to fly in there, rent a car, and drive across the state a little bit to Meade County, Kentucky. We have some professional development happening there on Thursday with Meade County schools and teachers. About 90 teachers are going to pack the house. Have a great day. Talk about changing the lives of kids. Also, we have a few dates left this summer. If you go to the website, click on Rock Your Schoolhouse. That's going to send some information to Georgia. She'll contact you, set the whole thing up. All right, Cameron Pratto's in the house. Here's the thing, brother. You are currently in Houston, Texas. Man, you are one of the owners, founders, directors, and all around everything guy for Urban Movement.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about it.
Urban Movement, we teach people how to move is the simplest way that I put it to just about anybody. And then if like yourself, they appear to be more interested, then we just have a little bit more, just a lot more philosophically and lifestyle-wise that goes behind what we do. And it's beyond just teaching people how to move. It just becomes parkour becomes a personal journey of self-development through movement and just trying to understand what our mental and physical limitations are, and doing it in a safe way, in a safe and in a rewarding way, where people can start from the ground up and not feel threatened by some of the ridiculous videos that you can find out there when you try to find out what parkour is.
Yeah. All right, so here's the funny thing about you, bro, is it's kind of like a Seinfeld episode, because like you represent stuff that I used to make fun of, and now like I get it. I feel stupid for making fun about it. So, like the first thing is like the poetry slam thing.
Oh yeah.
So when that first started coming out, I was living in Austin, Texas, and I went to a couple. I was like, oh my god, this is like the most. Yeah. and so the wife and I would go home, and like all of a sudden she would turn to me and she goes, bang, bang, the shots rang out.
Very dramatically, of course.
Yeah, real. And so we'd make fun of that. And then parkour came along, and then I would always say, parkour, man, we used to call that playing.
Yeah.
But now you got to have special shoes and pants and get a coach.
Yeah.
And so, but here's the crazy thing. So my daughter, Lily, is all in to poetry and poetry slam, and like she's really good, man.
Yeah, I heard her sacrificial slam.
Yeah, so
piece.
her thing is, man, she's too young to compete. You got to be, I guess, 13.
I guess I don't know the rules these days.
Yeah, right. And so for that group, but she goes to every competition, and she brings her work, and she is constantly writing, and she'll climb up on the roof on the garage and get up there and write in her journal, and cool. And like, yeah, it's so cool. And because she can't actually compete, she'll be the sacrificial poet, which means she'll go first. This is for people that don't know.
Yeah, of course.
You know, this is like a competitive sport almost.
Subcultures, all kinds of stuff involved.
And this it helps the judges calibrate how they're going to score. So she goes first, and they judge her, and she gets scored. And bro, she's like, her scores have like, she's coming like second place one time, third another, and she's not even old enough, right?
She's not even competing. Yeah,
no, and she absolutely is moved by the whole thing and loves it. And so what I used to make fun of, now I'm like, I'm crying, you know.
Yeah, it can be a great emotional outlet, not only for the readers but for the listeners too.
Man, it's and to see kids do
right.
it, and to see kids do it is
and your own kid,
right? And they tell their most, it's their way to get their most intimate emotions, the stuff that they think about. You know, I always tell parents, you know, every kid has their own little world going on in their head that you have no idea.
Yeah.
And to watch a kid get that out, it's amazing. And then parkour, I used to make fun of that, of course, until my son Jones is all about parkour.
He's a little badass too.
Yeah, he is. I know. And so, like, just the other day, he's on his. We have, you know, all kind of trees and stuff in the yard. There's this tree has this limb, maybe 3 feet off the ground, and he climbs a tree, gets on that limb, and jumps off and lands with, you know, he lands on his toes, his hands out, and I'm watching him. He does like 20 times, like he's working.
Nice, yeah,
on his landing,
repetition. That's awesome.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
And so I think, man, this kid has like found his thing. So both my kids have like found their thing in the thing I used to make fun of.
yeah.
And to see and to hear like Jones talk about parkour with his buddies. It's because he sounds like you talking about it.
That's cool. I'm glad some of it's rubbing off and it's working, I guess.
Yeah, it is working. And all right, so that's just a little taste of what it is and where. But let's back it up, because the dude that sits here now is very different from the guy that was going to school.
Oh, for sure.
So talk to us about that, man. So like let's start back like in elementary school. And you know, man, 99% of the thousands of listeners we have are teachers, and what, you know, teachers are interested in are, you know, where, you know, of making the difference in the lives of kids. If we teach them a little something along the way in terms of content, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. But, you know, getting that kid to be a great person and a productive member and find their passion is what we all hope to do. And when you're sitting in that classroom, at what point, because I have a feeling the schools, the traditional school classroom probably didn't work for you.
No, not very. I was disciplined by having to like run the football field more often than probably sitting in the class.
So at what point, like at what grade did you realize, hey man, this isn't working for me?
I'm going to say around, as soon as I changed from private school to a public school, around like 5th or 6th grade, getting up to middle school, I think, right before middle school. I think after it was a Christian private school, so after having some of the forced studies of some things that I kind of didn't even really feel that I was even understanding, different from numbers and places and stuff like that, being taught something that I couldn't understand like that wasn't, I think in that period is definitely what lost my attention. And then being able to have the freedom that comes with being in a public school. Once I moved to the public school, it was I was already a pretty clever kid, getting away with a bunch of stuff and could hop fences really well. So I was.
It's a nasty combination.
Yeah, I was wherever I wanted to be, really, other than paying attention to this education that I don't know, wasn't being delivered in a way that I was able to absorb and stay interested in.
Yeah, because obviously, you know, like we were talking about on that picture, man, if you haven't seen the picture of Cameron on our podcast page, check it out. He's doing a handstand. And tell us where you are there.
It's in Belgium, Antwerp, Belgium, on top of a museum.
Right. And of course, just like anybody, if you go to Belgium to visit museums, you might as well do a handstand on the top.
Of course.
And so when my wife sees that picture, she says, "Oh my God, that thing makes me sick to my stomach. I can't even look at that. Oh my God, he's going to fall." And then, but of course, like a teacher looks at that and they think, they get sick to their stomach too, because they think, "Oh my God, thank God that kid didn't end up in my classroom when he was 8. I didn't have to deal with that one."
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, you're more of a kinesthetic kid growing up, moving around.
Yeah.
And so for you to be expected to sit for hours in a desk with somebody staring at the back of somebody's head right in front of you, 2 kids on either side of you, and paying attention to somebody at the front of the classroom probably wasn't working.
Yeah, kind of. It's like these days when you have a conversation with someone and you can kind of see that they aren't really listening to you and they're just waiting to respond to what you have to say and not really paying very much attention. I was the one sitting and wondering what I was going to do when I wasn't sitting anymore, rather than absorbing stuff, which is all it kind of was at that point to me. It's just stuff. And just, what can I do when I'm done with the stuff?
Right. Yeah. And so 5th and 6th, man, that's when you start things start going downhill.
Yeah. It's when I felt like I started. There was something in me that I was always sticking my finger in phone booths. I was always hustling in some way. I wanted to. I guess maybe I saw things. Maybe if it was media or my surroundings, I don't really know when that clicked. But for something happened where I felt like I needed things, and I needed to hustle in whatever way that I could to buy that skateboard or to buy that new pair of shorts or that pearl snap shirt button or something like that. When I was younger growing up, or always having a clean white pair of shoes. It was always this facade I felt like I needed to keep up. So being in school and learning that stuff at that point didn't help me get what I wanted at that point. So stop paying attention.
And where were you at this point growing up?
I was in South Florida. I grew up in the southeast coast of Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Palm Beach County.
This is, man, that's an interesting place to grow up. There's a lot of stuff going on. You know, you remember that cat, Jerry Springer? He said that show?
Kind of, yeah.
I heard him.
Yeah.
So much older than you, bro.
No, I know who he is.
All right, so he used to have this show with, who's the daddy of that baby, and just crazy situation, people getting fights on the show or whatever. And I was watching this, interview with Springer, and he says, he goes, man, if it wasn't for Florida, I wouldn't have a television show.
All the crazies coming out of Florida.
Some wackos coming out of Florida.
Yeah, they don't call it the retirement stay for nothing.
No, right. And so, and anyway, so man, you're doing your thing, 5th and 6th, and at this point, man, you have married parents at this point.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of around the time my parents got divorced too. So I mean, I've already gone through all that stuff with them. They know that I let that kind of get to me. Well, I really let that get to me around that age, and yeah, I guess that was kind of a coinciding thing happening with that change of schooling too, because I'm pretty sure at that age, one of the reasons we changed schools from the private to the public was because of my parents going through a divorce, because I'm sure that's hard for parents to keep affording all of the luxuries and all of that type of stuff. So,
yeah. There's kind of like a perfect storm right there, man. It's like
yeah, for sure. And then my brother was already kind of bad, I guess, at that age. So I was having
older brother.
I'm the baby, or the youngest. So I definitely didn't always surround myself with positive people. I guess you could say there was always some sort of, I was either the negative influence or I was around somebody that could be perceived as a negative influence, and it's a recipe for disaster, I think, at that point.
Yeah, man. So we, I tell kids, I say, hey, man, check out who you're hanging. I mean, if you want to see who you're going to be in 5 years, just look at who you're hanging out with.
Yeah,
there you go.
Man, I didn't. It took me so long to understand that.
And if somebody told you that, you wouldn't have believed them anyway.
Probably not at that point. Not if they just came out and told me directly.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so, all right, so man, so at some point, I know things are going to get nasty. Now on this podcast, man, you can offer up as much detail as you want, or you can omit some things whatever you want. But man, I mean, if you're at a point in your life where you want to be honest and get it all out, man, let it fly.
Oh man, yeah, that used to be part of my poetry slams, was talking about all the stuff that I had been through. So
yeah,
I mean, there's not very much that that I haven't already said, or that I'm really, I'm not shy. I don't really have anything to hide. I mean. Right. I was a bad kid, I guess. I say a bad kid, but I guess that's relative. But I mean, it all ended in me basically being incarcerated for about 4 years before I turned 21. So at that being the end, I guess everything up to then was just pretty much all bad, from the point of, by the time right before I got into high school, I moved to New Jersey for about a year with my mother. Part of the what happened in my life after they got divorced. Went with my mother, my brothers went with my father, and so then it was just by myself. Mother was working all of the time to make ends meet, and I was just out and about causing trouble. And,
Yeah. In Jersey, what part of Jersey?
in Wayne, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is so what grade is that in New Jersey?
So that would have been 8th grade. I was my last year of middle school, and then I ended up back in Florida to start high school.
Yeah, so in 8th grade. So man, here we go. In just a few years, you've come out of this 2-parent household, this really controlled environment in the Christian school, and they're teaching academic stuff, but also doing some biblical stuff and some values based stuff, and using some stories from the Bible to teach other things and principles and all that. And then within just a few years, you have divorced parents. You've got an older brother that you look up to, and he's doing some things, and you're just kind of following that path. And then at the same time, the traditional school model of the kind of that sit and get model, just sit down, be quiet, and do what you're told, really isn't working for you. And now you're moving across the country from South Florida to Jersey, which is a whole different vibe.
Yeah.
And so at this point in New Jersey, man, in the 8th grade, like, what's a typical day for you? Like, you go to school or not, you're a skip or what?
Yeah,
what
I went to school I went to school more there than I didn't really start skipping school all that much until high school. But there it was I just normal sit at home, watch movies with the rest of your friends in your pajamas and shit just wasn't what I did. You know, where I was just I was introduced to herb for the first time there in New York, in Jersey, and that kind of catapulted or led into stealing, and that's at that point, and I guess new people, new friends. At that point, it was new opportunity, I guess, with that hustling mind frame that I had already kind of been in, selling candy at school before I was moving and trying to figure out it was working at Christmas tree lots, washing cars, cutting lawns, just always trying to find money and trying to be cool, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was super influential age in Jersey, and that's when it turned more of I guess a hardcore kind of bad kid instead of just little slap on the wrist type of stuff. I just started smoking, started breaking in, entering into stuff, and I wanted to come home with something I didn't leave with. Usually that was like a thing for me. It was a strange little tick that I had, I think, for a while.
Yeah. And this is 8th grade.
Yeah. It had building since then,
right,
for a long time, and other little things, I think. But I had a lot of time to myself, so it was.
And mom's doing the best she can, man.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And she's out there working, and she's got to come home and deal with you. And
I was man, for so long. Wow, I kept that. I was good. I guess good for a while and got away with a lot of shit for a long time. So, that wasn't really a visible issue to my mother. Like when she got home, everything was cool. I had already done the deeds during the day or whatever I needed to do.
So you got high, you broke and enter.
It was cool.
Yeah, some stolen stuff hidden in the house,
and I never really got caught. Yeah, sometimes she probably knew, and she saw a couple things around the house that shouldn't have been there. She's a smart lady, but I'm sure. And I had my share of discipline. My parents didn't just turn a blind eye or anything like that. But I think it got out of control.
Yeah, and this is only 8th grade. At this point, what's your relationship with your dad? Is he's still back in Florida?
Yeah. I hadn't spent much time with my father after my parents got divorced. There was I had just major resentments, I think, toward my dad, whether they were valid or not at that point. Just my parents were fighting, and it was they didn't ever really have nice things to say about each other at that point. So I kind of fed along with. Thinking that my dad had something to do more than my mom, blah blah blah. So
being in your mom's house, it's like you had to be on mom's team.
Yeah, sure. I turned into mama's boy real quick once the family got split up. So that distant me from made me more distant from my father for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's why one of the reasons I think, because after 8th grade, after Jersey, things didn't work out up there, so my mother was wrapping up things with the boyfriend that we moved up there for. That's why we were over there. So I ended up back in Florida for high school, living
Were
with
you
my
guys
father.
living with her boyfriend?
Yeah, yeah.
What was the deal with
that's
you
why,
and them?
Well, that's why we moved up to Jersey. My mother was following a relationship she had been in for a while, and yeah, it turned to shit with me and that guy. He, like, I don't know, really, he made me cry a bunch of times with the way he was approaching me and trying to deal with me, and he couldn't relate to me at all. So
Sure.
that just ended up in me like wanting to get out of there and tell my mother, and
Right.
my only choice was to go live with my dad.
It's a tough thing, man, because at this point you're with your mom, you resent your dad, and you have this cat almost trying to play the role of a dad,
Yeah.
in which you already have one, but you resent him anyway, so it's just making it worse for him. It's just not working for anybody.
Yeah, it wasn't at that point. Yeah, I kind of shut off listening to what was probably supposed to be good advice in my life, because it just seemed like I don't know, maybe because of the results that had happened during my life, kind of in my mind were because of things that happened because of these guys. Boom. I mean, I love my dad. I talk to him all the time now, and that stuff is gone. But it was not receptive to constructive criticism or anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
Especially from like a male or a teacher, probably at that point when I got into school.
Can you remember any of your teachers from 8th grade, or are they just kind of?
No, I really don't remember any of those teachers.
No.
No. It was
It's interesting.
It was kind of, yeah. It was like a
Because here's the thing, bro. You spent 9 months of your life with somebody.
yeah. At
And
that point, I was I didn't even think to try to establish any sort of
Right.
relationship with an adult in an authoritative place like that.
And I'm just wondering, not just your responsibility, but as an educator, seeing that kid, because I can tell you, man, if they're a great teacher, you can spot the kid that at home is having some trouble. You can feel that when the kid walks by you, as you greet him at the door. And I don't know if your teachers ever greeted you at the door, but I always greet my kids at the door, give them a high five, hug, handshake, whatever.
Yeah.
As they come into the classroom, man, just by the handshake and look in the eye, hey, bro, all good? And you can tell.
Yeah. I don't remember much of that, or if that happened, but if that did happen, and I was in the state that I was in, and it was noticeable by an adult with a clear, like, close view, like a teacher can get. Yeah, like maybe some little whispers to the guidance counselor or something like that this kid doesn't seem right, or this I'm not sure what
Let me ask you
ways
this.
of approach are like that these days, but
I know it's hard to go back in time, but if there was a teacher there, male, female, whatever, and had built that connection, and spent some extra time standing next to you in a classroom, and for me, it's always like, and I can spot the kid, and I'll start out with like a proximity thing. I'll stand next to him, we'll get not too close, but close enough where they know I'm just in that area, and then the next thing you know, right. As I'm talking and teaching, I might walk past that kid and just put my hand on his shoulder and say, man, you know what I'm talking about, right? And then it just kind of gives me the right to get in their personal space. And I just kind of edge my way in there, right? And then what do you think if there was a teacher that took the time to strategically kind of build that relationship and then asked you to say, hey, man, man, when the bell rings, hang out right here for just a second. I want to talk to you. And if they asked you what was going on in your life at that point, do you think you would have shared it?
It's a good question. I was usually pretty open, and yeah, if it was in like, I mean, if it was done strategically by the teacher, where it didn't even seem like there was a sense of negativity, like
Or judgment, or
right, yeah, like
what's up,
like
man?
I feels like most of the time I was approached, there was when I don't remember specific moments, but I think because I first went into like high school, I guess before that age, but So eighth grade, I don't have that excuse of being Brandon's little brother, because that's kind of what happened when I got into high school. So before then, yeah, I probably would have, because I wasn't really lost yet.
Right.
And I mean, I was doing some bad shit, but I wasn't really lost in eighth grade yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably wouldn't have known better than to really like try to pull the wool over a teacher's eyes to try to get over on them at that age.
Sure.
Probably would have. Yeah.
Because you would have been like the perfect kid for like maybe the wrestling coach to pull into his circle. Dude, why don't you hang out with us, man? Come work out after school, or one of those, to get you integrated and a part of something, to feel like you're a part of a family, whether it's the wrestling team or the band or whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah, look, yeah, that could have something like there was an age there where I might not have been too receptive to that, because I know when I got into high school, the organized sports, it was almost too late.
Yeah.
When it came to high school, when there was that type of offering. But if there was some sort of, outside of trying to be fucking class president or something like that, which to me was just a ridiculous thing, you know what I mean? If there was some other type of group to get in, like a movement group, like kind of what I'm doing with parkour right now, like if there were some sort of group where I could go outside and, excuse my language, but just fuck off for a while and just climb some shit, get dirty, roll around, and kind of get that emotional rush that life comes with, that is just not exploited or explored in like a classroom. Like, you just want to tap the mental aspect, and they don't really try to emotionally connect with.
It's true, man. I used to teach at school. I didn't have this kid in my class, but I knew of the kid because he had the reputation. Everybody knew the kid. And then we find out later, in his senior year, and this kid's, we're going to get rid of him. We're going to graduate him. You know what I mean? Don't you worry, brother. You're going to graduate.
All I got to do is show up.
You just keep going. And we find out later, this kid was like a national taekwondo champion.
Nice.
And like, in like some of those dojos, like in some of those taekwondo studios, I mean, it's all about respect and yes sir, no sir. And so he's living that life outside of school, because that's where he like fits in and learns. And he's like he's teaching little kids, but at school he's like this major gangster, and just it is. So you never know. So man, after eighth grade, you moved back to Florida.
Yeah.
And your reputation precedes you because you have an older brother down there.
Yeah, he was a senior when I was a freshman. So that just ended up being that's what did it. Yeah, because I had no barrier between me and the cool kids in school. I mean, that my brother was voted, like, going back to those senior superlatives or the superlatives given out, I think that was even in my freshman year of high school, I was voted most likely to end up on hard copy. I mean, That's what it was. And my brother was like best looking, most popular kind of guy. So I was Brandon's little brother. I was at all the parties. I knew all the guys that had already had the more life experience, getting into drugs and all of that type of stuff. It was just like handed to me.
Yeah.
And that's playing off of that hustler part of me, like enjoying being able to make money. It was a no-brainer for me to sell drugs.
Yeah.
And I was kind of good at it. It felt like for a while. So that was more important and did more for me in the immediate than school did. So that's freshman year, like almost right in the beginning. It was like, school what,
Right.
It's like I probably learned more in typing class in high school than I did in like any other class. Maybe that's why I got into IT. I don't know, because I could already type. I don't know. I could type. I was telling my friend the other day, I was like, in high school, I was like, I could type like a motherfucker.
That's your thing, man. You found it, baby.
Yeah.
So man, like, you're in high school and you hit the ground running it because your brother's already there. He's the man, and here comes his little brother moving to town. He's preparing everybody. Cameron's coming, man, and you show up, hit the ground running. And here's the thing, man. Everybody, especially at that age, we had like, these kids have these basic human needs. They have a need for connection. They got to connect with somebody. You need that. And you have to feel significant in some way. A kid needs to feel that they matter, and they're growing in terms of who they are as a person and successful. And what we say, man, they're gonna fulfill those needs one way or the other. You can do it with you as a teacher in the classroom, or they're gonna do it find themselves somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you're filling all your needs. Because now you're connected, man. You have and you're important because now you're selling drugs.
Yeah,
and you're significant. Here, I mean, and you
The
feel and you're good at it.
Yeah, the
So
significance came for me at that point because I had been away. When I moved back for high school, I moved back to my hometown. I was in the same place that I grew up in with all of my friends I grew up with until I was a teenager, and then moved away a little bit. So when I got back, I had spent a long enough time away where my peers were completely disconnected from me because they had already gone through most of those very influential adolescent years after, started becoming a teenager and stuff like that. I wasn't around. They started to do their own thing. So when I got back, it just kind of fell into place. My brother's friends became my friends, and I didn't need to try to become friends with anybody else, and that's where I felt good. That made me feel good. That significant part for sure.
Yeah, and you're 13, they're 17 and 18.
Yeah. I was getting rides to school. I had all the hookups for everything. And I was out drinking with all the guys all the time, and it was just like I felt like a grown up.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And then, and of course, man, this doesn't last long. You can't do that and get away with it. Not at that age.
No, man, not at all.
And so, at some point, it hit the fan.
Yeah.
When was the first time? Because you said you had some slap on the hands here and there. You got a little bit of trouble, no big deal.
Yeah.
When was the big one that hit? The first one.
When a couple young girls got caught by their parents for some stuff that I had sold them.
Mm-hmm.
They told them that it was me, so the parents went and had conversations with the guidance counselors and the people at the school.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't happen on school or at school, that was kind of like
nobody
had ever really said anything until it was like kind of too late, I guess.
Yeah.
Even if they did notice, it's not like an excuse or any sort of reason, but nobody ever really said anything to the school that I know of until shit hit the fan outside like that. So at that point they pulled me in to the guidance counselor's office,
and what's up right away.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, I had a thank you for pot smoking sticker stapled to my backpack, you know what I mean? Going to raves and shit like that. It was just that was that kid, I'm surprised I hadn't been called into the guidance counselor's office like every day up until that point.
Right.
But yeah, it was at that point they called me in, and then one thing led to another, and I guess they just were searching my car. I don't remember if I gave them permission or how that works, or if they didn't need my permission.
Not on school campus, baby. You got no rights.
So I had it was mostly hallucinogenics that I ended up selling acid and stuff like that is what I ended up getting caught for, and what I did mostly. And when roofies were real big, eating pills and stuff like that. So when they searched my car, they found a bunch of pills in my car, and that was the beginning of the downward spiral, like into legal problems.
Right.
Yeah, that started I had a couple misdemeanors for stupid shit before then, but
what was that? What were those?
Like buying alcohol as a minor, and just petty theft. Yeah.
All right. So, and this is interesting. So in class, in school, at 9th grade year, did all this go down 9th grade or 10th grade?
9th grade.
9th grade.
As soon as I got in.
Yes. And so, but like in class, you're not causing trouble. You're not like
no way.
No, dude, you're just sliding by.
Yeah. Because then I would bring attention to myself. And,
yeah, man. And this is what I always say, man. I always talk. I said, look, man, that in classes, that kid that's out of control is causing trouble. And we can focus on that kid, but the ones that worry me the most are ones.
Watch out for the quiet ones, man.
Because you know what? And as a teacher, it's so easy to think, well, thank good. I don't have to deal with that because the kid's quiet. Maybe they're doing the work. I don't know. Just let them fine. But, man, what we always say is those kids will forever be a better actor than you are a teacher. Mm-hmm. Like, you'll never know what's going on in that kid's life.
They could be dangerously introverted, man.
Yeah. And so you're the quiet kid, seem innocently enough, just maybe not really applying yourself, but who cares? At least you're not causing trouble and taking, teaching time away from the teacher. Mm-hmm. You're just, hidden in the back corner with your sticker stapled to your backpack, right? And living
Yeah,
life.
that didn't last long after that.
And then one day you get called down to the counselors. They're searching your car. You get caught with all the stuff. They bring the dogs. The big.
Nah, they didn't need to.
No, all right. It was.
Yeah.
They didn't need to.
Yeah.
And so what happens, man? They call the cops, or what? You go to
Yeah, they called it. I don't even think I got arrested. Like, actually arrested. I don't think they took me anywhere to juvie or anything like that. They just took my stuff and
took your inventory.
Yeah, that's when I got suspended from school for like 40 days or something like that. They did, and I went to like a vocational school for a month, like where they just send all the fucked up kids, maybe, I don't know, or like the bad kids, and that's what it felt like. It felt like when I ended up in a couple rehabs and stuff like that, and have that to compare it to, that's kind of what it felt like a little rehab for high school kids that don't pay attention in school.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't want to go back to that shitty place, you do better in school. And it didn't work.
Right.
Yeah, not yet.
Rarely does it work at that age, because we have them there on that campus, but now they're surrounded with kids just like them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and they leave there, and now they got new friends they met at that school.
Yeah, that kind of happens. Yeah, for sure.
And so
new connections or whatever.
Right. So you're at your alternative campus assignment, we call that, and you did your 40-day stint there at your high school prison.
Yeah.
And did you ever get to come back?
Yeah, I came back to school.
And did you come back a changed man? Everything's different. Or you just were clever now.
Yeah, it was just, I guess I thought I was smarter, something like that. And I had, at that point, I tried, like I did the competition team volleyball in middle school before I started to hang out with all of the wrong kids and end up in Jersey and all that stuff. So before I had always been into sports, organized sports, playing soccer, baseball, football, everything growing up, volleyball in middle school. I tried football in high school, but I was just like, I wasn't about being athletic at that point. I was strong, and I was learning how to lift weights, which I credit like any of my foundation of musculature to. That was one of the most in typing and lifting weights in high school. But football, like I couldn't stand the helmet. Wrestling, they wanted me to carry somebody and carry them around like this circle. I was like, dude, I don't want to carry people, and I don't want to like run up the bleachers and up, across, down, around the bleachers until I throw up. Like that wasn't my thing. I was just like, I want to just hang out and make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
still hustling.
Yeah, for sure.
Still focused on that.
Until like, I think the next time I ended up getting in a lot of trouble was maybe end of 10th grade, 11th grade. I mean, I had a few other things up until that point. I don't remember specifically, but the next like big event in my life didn't happen until the beginning of, I think, my junior year or something like that.
Still living with mom?
At that point, I had moved back. My mother cleared up whatever needed to be cleared up in Jersey. She moved back down to West Palm, and then I moved in with. I think I had moved in with her around my sophomore year. It took her about a year or so to get back, and then I kind of got away with more, I think, because then I wasn't living with my dad, who was more strict, as he should have been, and I wasn't around my brother as much, so I kind of had my domain back. You know what I mean? Mom was back. I had my space. I had my thing, and it was just, it was bad at that point. I was closer to school because my father lived a little bit further away, so everything was more accessible. Everything was just all around me. And that was like my mom's house became the spot for a while. Yeah.
The hangout.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when they were,
All right. And so mom's back at work, grinding it out, trying to pay the bills.
Man, she works hard, man. Always has.
What was her thing?
She does, she's usually a personal secretary for somebody pretty important is usually what she's done. So that's always kept her pretty busy morning, noon, and night.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just as busy as their schedules, just to make the money they made.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. And so you're doing your thing. So man, junior year hits, and the next big thing is what? What happens?
It's when I I had been doing everything. We would go to, well, not everything, but everything that I had been doing up until I was just with a friend. Ironically enough,
You still selling drugs at this
yeah,
point?
for sure. Never
You still
stopped.
little
Yeah,
theft here and there, just hustling money.
Almost always stealing from somewhere, whether we were going to someone's house party or we were going out somewhere, or stealing beer or stealing whatever,
Right.
credit cards, stuff from stores, all kinds of
Dude,
stupid
you're a
shit.
mess. You're a
Yeah,
mess, dude.
It was horrible.
right.
And it was I think I had to have been like picked out from being in trouble before. Buying alcohol as a minor, the stuff with on school, having a record already, and being in the system. I was with a friend when he was selling drugs, and it was the person he was selling drugs to that was like a narc or something like that. And because I was with my friend, I guess it assumed that I was selling drugs with him, so it was like a guilty by association type of deal.
That's the way it works, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I was just sleeping I kind of had heard about something going on. I wasn't really sure that I had a warrant out for my arrest because I didn't think that nothing happened when that deal went down that got me in trouble.
Right.
So I was just sleeping one day at my mother's place, and cops came to get me and told me I had a warrant for my arrest for this thing, for sale of hallucinogenics. And we were selling a lot of acid, so it wasn't just a few, and they were pissed, I suppose, and wanted to have other people to take the fall for what was going on other than just my friend. So that's like one of the first times I really went to jail.
They put the cuffs on you.
Yeah, it took me from
Put you in a car.
took me from my bedroom, and I was just gone for a while, and then and that's the first time I ended up in a rehab as the result of.
So you're a
what had
junior,
happened.
right, bro? You're a junior at this point?
Yeah,
And they put the cuffs on you, take you out of the bedroom, they take you to the station.
yeah, it was junior. I mean, there's a bit of fogginess there, so it was junior, beginning senior year.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah, in that area, in high school, late
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
And you go down to the station, they book you, they put you in, you get an attorney.
Yeah, luckily we had a really great friend of the family who, I mean, I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him.
And so you guys are moving a lot of acid, sounds like.
Oh, yeah, kind of.
And so and anyway, so they did you get sentenced to any jail time or just to rehab?
Well, at that point, I had just the rehab.
Rehab.
Yeah, I'm trying to think exactly how the timing of everything is a little foggy, like I was saying, because I don't remember if I got kicked out of high school before I went to rehab that first time, or if I went to rehab for a little bit, like a break from high school, and then went back. I think it was after I got asked to leave high school.
Asked to leave.
Yeah,
That's a
like-
nice way. You can't
like-
do us a favor.
Like
Just
I
not show up.
and-
That'd be awesome if you didn't come anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went down. Seriously,
Yeah.
like nothing had.
Would you,
Not one thing had even. Not
Would
one.
you sign right here?
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. Not one thing in particular happened, but some other shit was going down around the campus where I had already had that name. So they were just like, and they could probably tell I was still up to no good, even though they couldn't point fingers at
Yeah, they
anybody in
know.
particular. Yeah,
Right.
so that I just kind of got blamed for everything that was going on, whether it was me or not.
Yeah.
So I got asked to leave. So those
It
things
just
happened.
sounds so polite. I was asked to leave.
Yeah.
All right. So and then man, you've been to rehab. You've now you're kicked out of high school, and so at this point you have some. Are you thinking about making a change in your life?
No, I just had a lot more free time. To do the same stupid shit I was doing.
More opportunity to hustle and.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, raves were really big at that point.
That was huge back then.
That was.
What year is this?
Oh, that always messes with me. So it was
Give or take.
95-ish.
Right.
Yeah, about 95. I was 17 in 95.
And so you got a lot of time. You're on the street.
Yeah.
Mom was at work.
Yeah, it was all the. Yeah, yeah, and kicked out of school into that rehab. And then when I ended up coming, the rehab was my first experience with like really being away for a while. I think jail was just the beginning. Before that, being arraigned and all of that type of stuff. So that rehab was like 6 months. 6 months in, living in a place every day. You know, I could have left if I wanted to, but then the worser of my sentence would have kicked in. So it was living in a rehab for 6 months and then a halfway house for 6 months after that. And
So in the rehab facility, you guys are doing the group. You're sitting in the circle.
yeah, that's
You're
know
doing
that's
the
when I
whole
really
thing?
got to know my parents. That's what that rehab did. That rehab didn't keep me from doing the shit that I was doing that got me into rehab, because I still didn't really think I had a problem and all of that stuff. But that's when I got to know my parents, and that's when I got to tell my parents how I felt about all the things that was happening growing up and why I think I was acting the way I was acting and all that stuff. It was weird. It took 17 years, or since I was
Sure.
born or whatever, to like really, even I think even my parents sometimes they maybe could have pushed a little bit harder, but maybe they did push as hard as they thought they could have, and I just wasn't receptive to it. But at that point, when we were put in a constructive environment, and it was you shut up while you go, and you shut up while they go, back at like a controlled session like that.
Yeah.
Was, and being told whatever, just the way of being able to understand my feelings and emotions and how to kind of express them at that point. That's when made a lot of progress at that point for that rehab.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't receptive to to not smoke or not eat pills anymore.
Right.
During halfway through the rehab, it was just we're going out drinking with some friends and stuff like that. We were allowed to leave from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or something like that. We were just fucking off sometimes. So
Yeah.
it was right after that. I ended up back. I was always working in the service industry, so I went straight back to. I tried to stay away from old people, places, and things, which is what they try to tell you in rehab. I mean, that's one of the major things that are going to cause a relapse. You're around things that are familiar.
I've
blah,
seen
blah,
Dr.
blah.
Drew. I know.
All right, yeah. So like that kind of worked a little bit, but I just kind of made new friends doing the same shit. So
Yeah.
Eventually, one of my old friends did start to work with me at one of the restaurants I ended up having a job at, and that brought it all back. All the familiar stuff came back. He was still doing all of the same stuff we used to do. We were getting in trouble, so it's like, oh yeah, cool. I'll eat some pills with you again. And pills that's what ended up messing me up for sure. I guess was addicted to eating pills for some time when I was
What was your thing?
Xanax, roofies,
Yeah, all that.
like the downers and stuff like that.
And we'll tell you what, man. Today, Florida still is a capital, man.
Yeah, it's so
Oxycontin,
easy
Oxycontin, all that stuff, man.
It just comes through Miami.
And it's legal, and people come from all over the nation, and they line up. And so the way these doctors have it set up, it's a line out the door. And these doctors, $100 cash for a visit. Visit lasts less than 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then they also happen to have a pharmacy right next door
Oh, of course.
that they own.
Yeah.
And you take your prescription, and you walk right next door, and you pay cash. So it's all cash business, and it's all doctors.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable. And so people drive like through the night from Kansas, a couple times a month,
Yeah.
and pick up their pills and go back. It's amazing what still goes on to this day. And all right, so you're back in the lifestyle. So nothing has really changed.
Yep. Yeah, and I was old enough to be in clubs and stuff like that now. So
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So things are downhill fast.
Yeah, right again. It was, and again, like even now, how I'm speaking, I say I don't have things to hide. I don't really care. Or, like I'm just not a politically correct person in almost everything that I do. I don't really believe in sugarcoating and trying to say something without just saying it.
Yeah.
So it was, it just applied for a job at a pharmacy.
Oh my goodness.
Told them that I, was honest on the application, that I was a convicted felon and what it was for, and they gave me a chance. And that was a bad decision because I just ended up. I was there for long enough to walk by the aisle and see the pills that I was used to eating, and I was just like, cool, wow, free pills. At that point, I mean, I tried to be a little more clever, rather than just swiping them in broad daylight, but
Right.
it wasn't clever enough. So they obviously found that pills were missing.
Yeah, it didn't
so
take
it
long.
was, yeah, and that, like, the equivalent of the pills that I took was retail grand theft. So they were like, that wasn't a slap on the wrist anymore. So, and I had already been in trouble previous times. So now
you have a record
I'm
now.
a habitual offender.
And so where were you when they come get you this time?
I was at work. I was at work at the pharmacy when the loss prevention officer pulled me into his office and was showing me some video and stuff like that.
Of you swiping pills.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I thought I was slick for sure.
And you thought, wow, I don't look so slick. I'm like,
Yeah, and so at that point, that's when cops came again into that the loss prevention office and took me to my father's place. And I don't remember why. I think they took me there to get the pills. Maybe probably, like, at that point, I just like, oh man, whatever, you got me.
Yeah,
It was
I'm on the TV.
Yeah, it's like and it was probably to, like, pay less restitution or something like that. I was like, cool, I'll give you the pills back, so I don't have to pay for them.
Right.
So that's, yeah, and so that's when I went away for like a few years stretch, like a couple years.
All right, so you actually went to jail this time.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's when I didn't get out for.
Is it jail or prison? What's the difference?
No, from what I remember is if you're in for less than a year, it's jail, like
Right.
the county jail, which is
Like we
which
have
I
one
think
downtown here. And
yeah, that's like less than a year or so. And then I always remember if you got sentenced to a year and a day, that was when
Right.
you went to prison. Like,
So-
with one of the prisons.
so then you went to prison.
Because my sentencing wasn't for more than a year, I didn't end up going to prison. But
Nice.
that process of arraignment and
Being held until your court date.
and having a good lawyer on the back end, a family lawyer, again, trying to save me from going to prison, that took a while.
Yeah.
So I was in the regular county jail for almost a year, waiting for all that stuff to happen. And then after I finally got sentenced, one of the sentence was to be was about a year for a place called the Drug Farm. So as opposed to being sentenced to prison, which is where I should have gone, being a repeat offender and everything, they gave me another chance and put me in a place called the Drug Farm, which was a boot camp, a rehab boot camp in the stockade. So not like a leave if you want type of rehab where I went before.
Right.
It was barbed wired, run by.
You guys wearing the outfits.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was by, color coded hats for like the level that you were, or how long you'd been there, whether you could talk or not. What type
Dude
of,
screaming at you in your face.
Yeah, it was like a boot camp. Sure,
Intense,
PT in the mornings, cadence marching. It was at that point it was the real deal for me. I mean that's when I started to take things seriously. And once I got to the Drug Farm place, that place changed my life.
Changed your life.
Yeah, for sure.
And do you, I asked you earlier, do you recall anybody specifically from 8th grade as an educator? And you say no. In this boot camp setting, do you recall anybody working there?
Almost everybody.
Almost everybody.
Almost everybody. Yeah,
What-
especially the psychologist that was assigned to me, for sure. Miss Adams was her name. Her last name was Adams.
Why do you think that is, man?
Because she knew how to relate to me. She had a relatable personality to me. Or if she didn't, she did when she was with me. She was able to. She was just able to get to me at my level where I was, where maybe in an environment where you don't have to be as politically correct as you have to be in a school.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
She was real.
yeah, like
She built the connection, the rapport.
yeah, like broke me down for sure.
Uh-huh.
And because she had been there herself. I found most of the people who have been able to receive me the best, I guess, have been through something similar that I have, some sort of adversity. I mean, it doesn't have to be drugs or thievery or anything like that. It could be just simply having a fucked up family or something,
Yeah.
or some sexual abuse when you were younger. That's very common with people that I just common these days to hear, especially listening to the poetry slam part
Sure.
with your daughter the other day.
Yeah.
It wasn't in her piece, but it was a lot of the other people like that. That type of like lost, like being, if you've been lost, I guess it kind of can relate to other people who've just been just lost.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Here's the thing, man. Like everybody has a story. Everybody.
Yeah.
And as educators, I'm not saying we have to let every detail of our lives out, but just letting people know, letting our kids know that we have a story too.
Yeah.
It's such a critical thing. And because everybody has gone through something, there's something in everybody's life that is painful, man. And you know what? It's not the and the thing is, everybody's is different. And what I find is, like, I can't imagine going through what you went through. I can't imagine. But like, if you knew my story, you would think, "Oh man, I couldn't imagine going through what you went through."
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
everybody thinks because you went through it, you've already dealt with it, you can handle it. But when you hear somebody else's, it's like, "Oh my!"
And we're kind of like that. I think just human nature for some time until something slaps us in the face and is like, "Yo, that guy's got a story too." You're not like suffering alone or whatever people feel when they're experiencing something like that. And yeah, I think that like I have to act a little bit when I'm teaching classes. Everyone has to act a little bit when you're teaching classes. Part of that act should be to figure out what works for the particular individual and not being that disconnected, politically correct, watching everything you say type of person. Because a kid like me, how I was, like, all you are is an authoritative figure trying to tell me what to do at that point. Like, you're not trying to relate to me. You're not trying to see what was the coolest thing I did this week, ask before a class starts, asking people, like what was, like what I do with the kids class. Sometimes when you see us, we get down low, we get close together so everybody can hear. We do a little introduction, make sure everybody knows each other, make sure they're not just there for themselves, they're training with other people. And sometimes we get into a little conversation, like, what was the coolest thing you did this week? And like, even if it's talking about playing a video game, like the kid's eyes light up, like, wow, man, he's interested in what I did. He wants to know what I did this week. Like, that's cool. Of course I'll tell him. Yeah. And then, it's like, then you're relating to them, and then they're going to be obviously more receptive to what you want to teach them, because they feel at that point that they have something to learn from you.
Dude, man, it's just amazing to hear you talk and how just like what an expert educator you've become just because of your own experiences. Like, you didn't go to college or trade school or anything to focus on being a teacher, but this life experience that you had has prepared you to be like an expert educator, because that's the key, man, is about how that kid feels in that moment. That's why they're going to learn. And like one of the most powerful, like there's so many powerful statements, but like a couple for teaching kids is, just that powerful statement of the kid coming into class and was saying, "Man, I've been thinking about you all day. Man, I was thinking about you on my way, on my way to work today, man. I was thinking about you." And you know what? And just like that one statement, the kid, this kid just plants a seed. I'm like, what? He's thinking about me on his way to work?
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Or that statement is, "Oh man, you're not going to believe what we did yesterday, man. We went to this park and did parkour. Man, I couldn't wait to tell you about it. Come here." And that statement, I couldn't wait to tell you about it, because that's what you do with your best friends.
Yeah.
Like when something great happens in your life, you call your best friend.
Detail. It's all about details.
Yeah, and so I couldn't wait to tell you about it. When a kid hears that, they feel, "Oh my gosh!" Now there's this immediate emotional connection, and that's why they're going to remember everything you teach them in that class.
Yeah.
Such powerful stuff. So at this boot camp now, we've eliminated outside influences. You have this crazy structured environment. You're on a time schedule. There's no time to do anything except for what people tell you to do, and you have a connection with people. You have some role models. You have counselors, and this woman who's able to relate to you. And like you said, whether she's really authentically being her in that moment, or she has just figured out how to relate to your personality, and she's an expert at that. Well, however, it doesn't matter, because she's going to get results with you. Yeah. And so all this, and you're in there for some time for how until the gates clanked behind you. going into the gates clanked behind you leaving. How long were you in that place?
And I think it was in the drug farm for like 11 months.
11 months.
Yeah.
We're gonna count that as a year. 'Cause
Yeah.
you probably forgot about one of those
Probably.
months.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, a year. We'll go on a year.
And so you get out of there, and what you have to go to another kind of a
Yeah,
halfway.
I had to go to a halfway house again for 6 months.
Uh-huh.
So in that aspect, a halfway house was a place where I lived, and I was only allowed to leave there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I could leave to work, and we were allowed to go to AA, NA meetings and all of that stuff. But the curfew was 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. So we had to sleep there, live there, eat in the common area, do all that stuff.
Right.
And then even after that, there was more what they called outpatient treatment for several months after the halfway house. And then, man, probably for 2-3 years, even after that, I was on probation, having to pay money and piss in a cup. That's the way that I wrote about it all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Are you changed at this point?
Yeah, for sure.
You're done.
Yeah. There was the tendencies that I had before just don't remain within me. It was like I said, the drug farm changed my life. This is when I taught myself yoga in the drug farm. That played a big part of it in understanding and even beginning to think about a mind-body connection. I had never that type of stuff never even crossed my mind before, of like how I even said to you before I came in here, with this extra time I have on my hands that I'm sure we'll get into shortly, I make appointments with myself. I want to teach myself, learn myself, make appointments to continue to get to know myself all of the time, because this is just something that is neglected too much, I think.
Yeah. So how did you start this yoga practice in the drug farm?
There was one of my bunk mates. We lived in like 6 different rooms, and in each room there was like 8 bunk beds. So one of the guys that I slept next to had the complete illustrated book of yoga, and I was bored of reading the dictionary, so I thought that I would pick this up, and I was always getting looked at funny when I was in the yard. You got some of the other like big guys that probably should have been in prison, or maybe had worse pasts, their own story or what have you, and I'm this guy in the corner, like
in the lotus,
getting flexible, and getting stretching. So
getting your lotus on.
Yeah, for sure. It was strange, but at that same time, that's when I started to feel like I didn't give a shit. I didn't care. I stopped like allowing outside things like that to affect me, and I just became more introverted, I think, than I was before, but like I was positively processing these things now, and I wasn't like purposefully not paying attention to things that could have positively influenced me. You know what I mean? I was taking everything good and bad, and I was really trying to get good at figuring out what worked for me.
Right.
And that concentration that happened when I understood the meditative part and the breathing part of yoga just brought a different sense of calmness to myself, where I was actually able to think without those distractions. So that just stuck.
Here's what's interesting, man. I was recently listening to the Joe Rogan podcast show, and he talks a lot about psychedelics and a lot about herb and that whole thing. And he said that when he went to his first yoga class and did yoga for the first time, and he came home, and the feeling he had from spending 2 hours doing this yoga, this experience, he said was if he had to, if someone were to ask him, "Are you high right now?" He said, "I would have said yes," even though he wasn't. From the breathing and the mind-body experience, and really going inside yourself, and the meditative qualities of yoga, he said it was like this transcending experience.
Yeah, if you're open to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're kind of trying to figure this thing out on your own.
No, yeah, I kind of had to. Yeah, because when I got into the drug farm, I mean, there were guys that were like running multi-million-dollar companies that just fucked their life up from smoking crack or whatever, eating pills themselves. I mean, guys that, I was like 20 by the time I got into that place, I think, and I didn't want to be like that. Boom. So it was, I I really started to understand how to learn from other people's mistakes too.
Yeah.
And I never really saw that before. I was like, oh, it's like, I'm not going to do something that stupid. You know what I mean? But yeah, just that allowing to myself to begin to understand myself. I started to see so many things I had never seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the combination of Ms. Adams and the internal processing of what was going on with yoga and one of the other major things that happened in the drug farm was one of the big things that set me off when I was getting into trouble was my car got stolen. When I had one of my first car, I bought my friend's mother's 1984 Buick Regal, and the first thing I did was put spokes on it. You know, I was selling drugs, had a bunch of money. I was like, I gotta have the car, right? And then the alarm was the last thing on my mind at that point. And right before I was about to put the alarm on, the car got stolen. So all my CDs got stolen, my rims got stolen, all that stuff, and that set me off on a do unto others what has been done unto me type of path, like even more destructive at that point. And when I was in the drug farm, I met the guy who stole my car.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
did you know who stole it before you got there?
No clue. No, it's still never had. That was just an unresolved thing for me that really, really took me off on stealing stuff more than I had done before from after that happened.
Yeah.
But I met him there, and that.
What was that scene like? Like when you figured it out?
That was like just a circle. You know, sometimes you're around all them cats that have in there for some bad reasons. So we're sharing war stories. And one of the stories was just like, because I had long hair. I had long hair at that point, and it was a smaller Spanish kid, and he was, you know, talking like white boy this, white boy that. And he's like, yeah, this white boy in Springdale with the ponytail used to have the spokes on his white Regal, blah, blah, blah. And we took it one night, and I was like, that was me, bro. And it was just like a no hard feelings. It's just when we were more receptive even to each other in that constructive environment where it was a positive outcome instead of like, what, you stole my car, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah. So that was after that helped the transformation really. And I was done. I was done before I left the drug farm. It's like, this is not the life for me, man. Like, I don't want to be 50 back in here with this other guy.
You still keep in touch with anybody from that scene, Miss Adams, any of the other guys in there?
Nah, for a while I would go back because when I got out, some of my first teaching experiences were going back into rehabs and speaking to the youth about drugs and what not to do.
Yeah.
So that was really the extent of keeping in touch with any of them. They would have some meetings where you could go back to the drug farm and like listen in on one of like a once a month type of meeting. And I'd go back every once in a while to share experience, strength, and hope is the way that they would always put it. So sharing my story and stuff like that. And with the kids that's when that also kind of solidified not getting back into that lifestyle, was being able to relate and share my experience with other people going through the same thing.
Yeah. You know, for me, like as an educator listening in on it, I think, there's a couple of things. It's like, man, in that moment, what's happening is, as a future teacher, you're learning how to be completely real and absolutely authentic in front of those, because you don't have a choice. Like when you go back to share your story, you got to get the whole thing out there. And so like you're learning what it feels like to stand before a group of people and just kind of open up and be emotionally naked and get it out there. Yep. And in addition to that, it's like now, in addition to that, you're like setting your own level of expectation for yourself, because now you have a responsibility to come back and share your story and provide strength and hope. You can't go out and mess up, because it's like these kids are counting on you now.
Yeah, I definitely got that sense and was able to feel that, and that was one of the things that fueled my recovery, I think.
Yeah.
And from that aspect, I used the program, as they call it, didn't work for me. They say work your own program in that way, and you know, you get to some hardcore cats that are in AA and NA. If they hear me speak in that way, they'd be like, you know, you're once an addict, always an addict. And I believe in that stuff too, and I know my limitations and what to do and what not to do. But teaching other people and sharing my experience in that way was like that was my program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at some point, man, you got to get like a real job, a career, and you've been kicked out of school. You don't have a high school diploma.
Yeah. Well, I ended up getting my GED in the drug farm.
There you go.
Yeah. So that was
Accounts.
yeah, for sure. That helped.
And so you have to pick a real job, and somehow you find yourself in IT business because you can type.
Yeah. The damn typing class.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was from 20 or 21 ish. Like as soon as I was free, I started writing. I started writing in the drug farm. I started writing more. Like hip hop had always been an influence for me, so it was just like all these little rhymes, like for the intentions of having some sort of beat behind them or something. So it was after I got out of the drug farm that one of my brothers and my high school friends worked in a video shop, and I was always hanging out at the video shop, and he was, watch this movie, watch that movie, you're gonna love this. And I saw this movie called Slam that had a guy named Saul Williams in it. And if your daughter doesn't know who he is, if she looks up Saul Williams, it could possibly change her life as well, because my life changed a little bit again at that point, where I had been writing for no real purpose other than for myself. And then in this movie, there was a couple slam scenes and a couple pieces where this guy Saul Williams was just being himself basically in this movie he was acting in. And I know that's ironic, but it's the way that the piece was done. I mean, he's just a spoken word artist, and in the movie there was a couple pieces where he was on stage, and I felt the energy from sharing what you write with a group of people like that. And that scenes in that movie, just at that point in my life, with as vulnerable as I was to like kind of a culture shock, just getting out from being locked up for a few years. And it just, that's when poetry and poetry slams and that type of spoken word scene became my life for 5 years or so. So I didn't really have a real job. I had a lovely, very, very supporting girlfriend at the time who was helping me out with just kind of life and reacclimation to everything. And I was just working odd jobs in the service industry, waiting tables, valeting cars. I mean, I don't know, I've probably had like 50 different jobs doing all that type of stuff. And poetry, that was my thing. I did modeling and acting and all that type of stuff when I was much younger. So I had a taste of that, and I kind of was looking at what I could do with my life, blah, blah, blah. And I felt really good at writing. And when I would go to these poetry slams, I mean, I would get standing ovations from huge rooms of people and great energy. And I was like, man, cool. This is like, that's what I pursued for a while. And that's what happened for, other than the odds and ends kind of meaningless jobs, I think, poetry was my thing until I ended up in IT. And that's when that was my I felt that was my second experience teaching outside of speaking at the youth facilities for the kids that were there, like in juvie and stuff like that. Poetry slams. I felt like I was teaching people things. I felt like I was teaching people what not to do by sharing my experience of my bad decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that led to, we created the first poetry slam team in West Palm Beach to compete in the national slam. Like went to a couple regional slams, like in Georgia. We were always competing in Miami and like in South Beach and West Palm Beach, and then that's I guess when Russell Simmons caught on to wanting to make a show. He just saw these cats spitting rhymes everywhere without music and without beats most of the time, and it was a big thing. It was a huge thing for quite some time before then, but it just really started to pick up, and HBO was going around doing showcases, trying to get people on their HBO Def Poetry Jam, Def Poetry Slam. I think it was Def Poetry Jam after like Def Comedy Jam.
Right.
So that was that's kind of where that experience ended, because it just it put a bad taste in my mouth for the entertainment industry again at that point, where it felt like I was surrounded more by fake people at that point, at least
Start
in
sucking
that
the
aspect.
sucking the art out of it and infusing it with the business part of it.
A little, yeah, kind of, which kind of seems to happen with everything. It's like the American way, but at that point, I wasn't open to it and I wasn't receptive to it, and I allowed it to I allowed it to piss me off and deter me from trying to make a living out of it. I still wrote for a little while, but it wasn't my main focus, and that's when the more responsible girlfriend and my mother and a couple other outside influences were like, so what are you going to do to make money? I was like, oh well, I always like gadgets. I like to play with toys, and then I grew up on video games and all this type of stuff. I was like, why don't I just get in? At that point, it was like, let's just get into computers. I had no clue what about computers I wanted to learn or know. I sucked and I hate math. At least math intricate enough where it's necessary to understand it to pass things like computer science degrees with trig and all of those things.
Sure.
That aspect of computers didn't interest me. But once I started to find out and understand a bit about electronics and electricity and networking and how computers connected, that's what was like, oh, I love like that. I understand. I understand how to make things connect. I understand how to set up a server so you can log into your email and stuff like that, and those types of things that clicked. So I went to a tech school for a few years, and that's how I ended up in IT. Tried college, like a traditional college, and
Right.
Maybe math and English and literature will be good for me, but it just my mind does not. It's just I wanted more narrow focused at that point. Wanted just everything that had to do with computers.
Sure.
And screw everything else. So
And it worked for you at the time.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that was like 15 years ago almost now. Yeah, a little bit less.
And then for 15 years, man, you've seen it all. You've sold computers. You've done networking. You had your own IT thing happening.
Yeah,
Worked for other people. Been around the world teaching.
yeah, that was the corporate experience and teaching. I think is when since we
Look
can
at you.
focus
Got yourself
on
a pair
teaching.
of slacks and
Yeah,
a button-down
yeah,
shirt.
it was funny to see my brother's reactions when they saw me in like a suit and tie for the
Right.
first few times. It was just like they probably didn't recognize me at first. But yeah, like the poetry slam stuff kind of coincided with the computer schooling. So like working at a CompUSA while I was going to school and doing poetry slam stuff. So there was a bit of a crossover, but yeah, once it stopped, I was suited up and I was ready to, in my mind, I was gonna conform. That's what what it was in my mind. It's like, I guess I got to do this real world shit and make a living for myself and move out of where I was, and yeah, and it worked.
Yeah, it worked. And so you started getting a salary at some point.
Yeah, I set up, I did, right after, I don't even think I was done with school. And I was starting to, this like entrepreneur was coming out of me. And I was just like, I'm bigger than this. I'm better than this. I don't need to be where I was. I just want to create things for myself. Me and a friend started a really small managed IT services company in Florida called Splitback. We just did home installations, helped a lot of the wealthy people in Palm Beach set up stuff in their house and all that kind of stuff. And I felt like it was too new. It was premature. I just too soon out of school. I didn't know what I was doing as much as I thought I might have needed to. And I was always playing video games. This is how I ended up in Houston about 10 years ago. And always playing video games. And once you're in that type of subculture and the same games all the time, you play with the same people all the time. So I was always playing with this one guy that lived in Houston. And I went on a trip to Toronto with my girlfriend one time and stopped in Houston. And we were playing games before, setting it up. What am I going to do in my layover? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, cool. I'll come pick you up. We'll take you out to lunch. And this was really strange. My first ever experience meeting somebody through the internet, that was just like unreal to me. And I was traveling, ripped jeans, t-shirt, whatever, just a mess. And these guys come pick me up in like business casual attire. They're all sophisticated and, picking me up and getting me back to the airport on time.
Little did they know.
yeah. It was a cool experience, and they got me back to the airport on time. So that was ended up making it positive. And he'd always been joking, hey, if you want a job in Houston, let me know if the split back thing doesn't work out. And And it wasn't working out. I called him, let him know. It's like, hey, what about that job? He's like, I'll call you back in 15 minutes. I'm like, all right, cool. And he calls me back in 15 minutes. He's like, yeah, one of my clients, they've been looking for a full-time guy for a while, so you got a job. I was like, oh, shit. Okay, so, like, where am I going to stay? Or is there apartments around there and this and that? And he's like, I'll call you back in 15 minutes. Like, okay, this is getting weird.
Right.
So he calls me back and he's like, all right, talk to my wife. She says it's cool. You just come stay with me for as long as you need. Find out where you want to live. I packed all my stuff in my Jetta and drove to Houston 2 weeks later and just left. And that started my real IT career, I guess you could say.
Yeah, man. And so you worked with him for how long?
I worked. He got me a job with one of his clients, so that was me working by myself at this place. It was an architectural firm.
Are you like an independent contractor? Or
No. It's interesting. In this interview, it would probably make sense to a lot of people. I worked for PBK Architects, and they build like almost all of the schools around here.
I know them well, man.
Yeah, so I ended up being the manager of the IT department for PBK Architects, and it just that was about 4.5, almost 5 years.
Yeah.
And then it just became something monotonous to me. It just wasn't holding my interest. So I wanted to go into, I guess, the real managed IT services outsourcing world. So that's when I went to go actually work with my friend that got me the job. And that was cool. That was a cool change. And like before PBK, there wasn't a lot of teaching opportunity for me other than the people that I managed, just making sure they knew stuff. But it was when I got into CHR Solutions, which was the last company that I worked for. That's when, to follow up with you saying about me traveling the world, teaching a little bit.
Yeah.
They had an office in India. Excuse me. So they sent me to India to teach our office out there for a few weeks on the stuff that we were doing here in the States.
Man, this is crazy. So now you're in India.
Yeah.
And this is how long ago at this point?
This was about 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago.
And at some point, man, you within all this here in Houston, somehow you get into this parkour thing.
Yeah.
And so you got this parkour thing going on. You got this yoga background. You've been thinking about this mind body thing, and you have this wacky, completely different IT world.
Yeah, it's big contrast.
Yeah. And at what point does it start? Does the seed, because the seed's in there, but now it starts to blossom in your mind of, you know what, man, because this hustler part of you, that's just like part of your DNA.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to make some money somehow. You know what? Maybe I can follow this passion for movement and parkour and really make that my living as well as my lifestyle.
Amen.
And so, at what point does that all start coming together in your head?
I'd probably been training. I was introduced to parkour about 5 years ago, and I think it took maybe about a little more than a year for me to start to think that I could show other people how to do what I was doing. Didn't even really take it too seriously because it was just a casual thing where we were. The last thing I was in the words of the founder of MoveNat, for some time I was a zoo human for a while, going to the gym. I was playing racket sports, using all of the machines to allow me to move in the way the machines were designed to move, and it was a very plain, monotonous thing. And once I found parkour, it was a culmination of everything that I had ever learned in life, like literally, movement or not. It was education of my physicality and of my brain, of my mentality, of just being able to understand myself in a way that I really only ever experienced when I was starting to get into yoga.
Yeah.
Before I guess when I look at it now, before I allowed myself to kind of conform to the corporate way of things, and my creativity and that artistic side of me had no place there. So it kind of felt like it was lost for me for a little bit. So when the movement came back in, that's when it started to engage my mind like my mind hadn't been engaged since I had been creative like that.
Yeah, and so what's really cool about it is now, all these ingredients have come together. Where like the structure from the boot camp, you call it the hustle, I call it the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
There's that part of your DNA that's already you kind of born that way. It's who you were growing up, and you were selling candy at school, making money. Other people call it fundraising. You had your own little fundraising
The
business.
whole politically correct thing.
Right. And so there's a structure, this entrepreneurship. You have this. You have now you have connected with Miss Adams. You're figuring some things out on your own about yourself. You're sitting in a group. You're forgiving people. From stealing your car, you're learning about your parents. And now you have this business background, so you're learning how business works. And at the same time, now there's this parkour thing which is growing, and you talk about you now brings your mind back into it and your physicality. But really, once you really get into it, it brings in the yoga stuff, this emotional and spiritual component to it, which a lot of people don't really even get until you have a kid that kind of goes through it. Then you kind of see some results in your kid from it, and then and at this point in your life, man, you make the big decision that you're gonna step away from this suited up role that you're playing in the corporate world and move into this parkour, the urban movement, the MoveNat thing, and use all that you've learned as not just a lifestyle, but as a way to make a living.
Yeah, absolutely. It just saw myself in the other people I was teaching that I hadn't seen before, and that really hit home with me and made me feel that euphoric, creative type of feeling that I hadn't felt in some time. And that's when I just started to think to myself and made a decision that I want to start to learn about the human body as much as I have learned and know about computers. So that's how it plays in my head. That it seems, I don't know, I guess it makes sense to me in that way.
Yeah.
Just, it'll take time, but this is, after a while, what will happen, because this is already the path that I've set myself on. So we started, that's one of the reasons why we started Urban Movement, is one of my personal reasons, but also with a couple of the other directors, they were experiencing the same sort of thing, the same sort of liberation through movement and the self-discovery process and the sharing process. And then then we were noticing we're like the over 30 crowd. I'm not sure if that has much to do with a lot of the parkour community being very young, but I mean, we started to see a couple of the things that just the other guys that were younger and around us just weren't seeing. Just different, potentially negative approaches to the movement that could create harm in someone's life, and not positive stuff that we were feeling and experiencing. So we felt we could teach people how to move. We were understanding it. We met the founders. The founders came into Austin, Texas. We met them, we trained with them, and we had this connection with them where we were already starting to share the discipline in the way that they intended from when they created it. And it was like a validation in a way that like we got the hang of this thing. Like, wow, we must really understand the way that they intended it. And having that sort of influence and backing and communication with the people that created this thing that we were doing, it was just, there were all the pieces were putting themselves in place for us to create Urban Movement and to do this for what will hopefully be a lifestyle and a sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that people don't get. Is the lifestyle part. But you know what I'm thinking about right now, dude, is like if you think about the way you described the IT business and how it made sense, is exactly what you described about parkour, and how IT is this metaphor for parkour, where you talked about what made sense is you're getting these things to talk to each other and the communication between computers and and the support that might be called the help desk, but but whatever. But really, parkour is the same thing almost, where like here, to put Urban Movement together, you had to have all those components in place where you have communication back and forth. These people are talking to these people. We have support now. and so you create this thing, and and I mean, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a teaching program for kids. And it's awesome, man. So my kid's in it, and I'm not, I'm his dad, but listen, he's pretty awesome. He's like a little physical specimen, man. He's
a
into
little
it.
ninja.
He is, but he's been always, man, he's been backflipping off the couch for years, and now we put him in parkour class where he can, do it in an environment where he has a mentor and an adult that he can look up to and live it, and to learn how to live his life in a productive manner, and somebody that has a story that has overcome and I mean, just an incredible list of obstacles to get where they are now, which has this depth of character, and instead of just kind of like this shallow figure where they're told to look up to him because they're told to.
Yeah, because they have to. Or
Yeah,
like
because
that.
they're the leader of the class.
Pay
So
attention to him.
yeah, right. but it's a different scene in parkour. The way all the kids come together, we all get down on one level. I say we, but I'm watching. And
I mean, instead of hey, get down from there.
Yeah.
It's hey, let me show you how to do that safely.
right.
Let me show you how to do that right. So yeah.
It's and it's all by example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so in classroom, in the biology class, we might call it a lab. We get your hands-on experience.
Yeah, for sure.
But in
Parkour lab.
yeah, that's what the whole thing is that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's a conditioning approach to it, where you have to build some conditioning to get to the level of skill, and then you build upon those skills as we get to the next skill. Which in school we might call that math, because you have to learn this, you have to learn multiple. Before you can learn to multiply, you have to add, subtract, and all that. So in parkour, it's the same approach. It's just done physically for those kids that are really kinesthetic.
Yeah. The hands-on part of it, I think, is the most engaging part. I mean, I guess the kinesthetic parts you keep on touching on. Yeah, I mean, if there's more to do, then I mean, if a parkour class was them coming in and I was just showing them videos and talking about parkour and writing and using a whiteboard and just parkour is this, and this is how you do this in parkour, and this is how you do that in parkour, without a lot of real world hands-on type of experience of it. I mean, nobody would come to parkour class.
No,
so
it'd be you.
I mean, it'd be. I mean, I see a very similar connection to how we were just touching on with another classroom setting, or like a school classroom setting where you just don't engage everyone with a book and a dry erase marker. I mean, there's got to be something else, something more, something different to connect to the kids that don't give a shit to learn that way.
Yeah.
Or just won't learn that way no matter how many times you shove it in their face.
Right. And there's kids that you have made the choice that I'm not going to learn that way. But there's also kids that, from the brain, they can't learn that way.
Yeah.
They just can't.
Right.
They're not built that way. They have to learn differently. And for parkour, man, I think that it's such a great a vehicle for kids to learn about that. What I love about it is connecting with other kids, and that support, where they learn, like you guys model, how to be supportive of each other, no matter what the level of the kid.
Yeah, it's cooperation over competition always.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And some kids are a little bit more advanced than the others, and some kids just physically. They're just not there yet. Their body has not matured, or they haven't made that connection that has to happen, through the nervous system to get over that thing, and watch him struggle. But the next kid is supporting him anyway.
Yeah, it's so much just as physical as the movement discipline is that we are trying to teach. It is mental. I mean, and it's we train just as much to overcome fear as we do to overcome a physical obstacle. I mean, because most of the time, if someone isn't going to go over or under or around an obstacle we put in their path, it's because they're afraid for some reason or another. So the idea then becomes to take a step back, get everything into perspective, and understand how to break down the fear so you can overcome the obstacle. And we try to teach it in a way where it's not looked at like it's just a box or just a wall. We even talk about it in the class in a way sometimes where this translates to life. It's I mean, the same sorts of ways you learn how to handle your fear in something like training physically with parkour is the same sort of thing with fear I might feel and nervousness before going to have an interview with you, or before I go to teach this new MoveNat stuff that I'm doing, traveling around teaching brand new people that I've never seen before, and they're just supposed to pay attention and they're supposed to learn from me. And like on the onset, that creates a lot of fear. and not having is very recently, 2 weeks ago, I took a combatives course for this MoveNat discipline that I'm also involved in. And then the combatives course was the first time in a really long time that I was voluntarily forced into outside of my comfort zone, and being able to feel a rush of rage / adrenaline being put in a combative type of situation was unfamiliar to me. I was like, do I have a headache? Do I have a stomach ache? Right. What is going on with these things? I haven't felt like that type of adrenaline in a long time.
Sure.
And in order to get better in a combative type of situation, in order for me to be able to protect myself and be able to control my reactions in the event that I end up in an emergency situation like that in my life, the better I'm going to be at it is going to be as the result of my training in it. And training that fear and training the movements that happen in parkour translate, like there's you just can't stop it from translating to the rest of your life. It just happens automatically.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main points we try to drive home when we're describing the types of movements and why we're even doing a movement. Why are you even making a choice to make that jump? Like, why? Not just, jump from there to there. It's like, think about it. Why do you even want to? And those types of processes is the difference that we see in the way we deliver our classes, and then the results from the students, especially kids like your son, for sure.
Yeah, man, with kids, because what we want, listen, the odds of my kid being some sort of a parkour professional, making money at parkour, probably pretty slim. But what we want is exactly that, why to have a thought before, not just parkour, but when he goes through life, here's this obstacle or this challenge. Why would I even want to do it? Why should I do it? Do I really want to do it?
Yeah.
And have an answer. And then also when he meets a challenge, whether in parkour, it might be the wall or the bars or going over the obstacle, the box, whatever, first of all, he has to think, and at 7, he already thinks, well, first of all, do I even have the skill?
Yeah.
And maybe I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe now's not the right time for that challenge.
Yep.
Just like you with split back. That was a great challenge you put in front of you, but you know what? You probably didn't have the skills to make it happen at the time.
For sure.
Well, with parkour, now he's learning, maybe I don't even have the skill to accomplish that. And if I think why I would even want to do it, maybe that doesn't even make sense, knowing I don't have the skill. But with parkour, what we learn is the why and the what and the how and the when and the where, and if all that lines up perfectly together, well, then now he moves forward.
Yeah.
Which dude, most people go to their grave without ever putting all that together.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely.
And here's you
agree.
standing before a circle of 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-year-olds on Friday afternoons, for an hour and 10 or 15 minutes, instilling this in kids. And man, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's worked out so far. I think we're doing a good job in the way that being able to see the results. Like, I guess I probably, if it wasn't working or if it didn't work for myself, I don't think that we'd see it working for the kids, and then I wouldn't probably be running or trying to run urban movement. It would be the same sort of thing like split back, be like, oh shit, we've got a lot more to learn. Let's go back and close the doors for a little while and figure out this thing a little bit more. But because of the 3 directors of urban movement's prior life experience, the ways that we've just put the stuff together and been able to have exposure to the people who started the movement, and all of that has been able to really solidify and give us a good feeling for how to get people to move in their mind and with their body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so far we've just talked mostly about kids because I have a background in teaching and my kids in it. But man, this isn't just for kids. You guys also focus on, any adults are coming in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have students from 7 years old to like 60 something years old. And we have doctors, lawyers, students, insurance reps, people, grocery store clerks, students, everybody. I mean, it's because it's not, because it's movement. And like you said before, it's play. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, everybody knows it as play, and we just only really stop playing.
Yeah.
Everybody plays for some period but then something happens where, it's different for everyone. Like you said, everyone has a story, but everyone knows how to do it. And if you do it again as an adult, especially if you haven't done it for a really long time, a doctor or someone told me some sort of comparison to every day you don't move or don't do anything athletic to strengthen your heart. It's the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes. Like, you might as well smoke. Not advocating smoking, obviously, but like that's how much damage you do to yourself over a longer period of time of inactivity and living a sedentary lifestyle is just, it's damaging to your body. And I want to be able to do these things when I'm 70, you know what I mean? And I want that type of approach to people's movement in life where it's, even in the realm of my own life of being brought up thinking that I need these things that I was hustling for, that I gotta have the nice TV and the nice clothes and the car or the nice job and all of that stuff. It's just, there is a progression for everything, and those types of things, if they're going to last and be a good positive influence in your life, it's going to take time. It's not something that you just watch a video on, come to our class, and people are like, so we're going to jump off a roof? It's like, boom. It's like in life, you know what I mean? It's like, are you going to start out as the executive? Boom. You know what I mean? You got to slow and low. You start from the ground up with everything. And we try to translate that through movement for sure.
Yeah. And, I've always, for some reason in my mind, what makes sense for people to really get it is like this. When you talk to somebody who had a great martial arts experience, and I'm not saying it because, a lot of people don't, but the goal isn't, the odds you having to use any of those silly skills, pretty remote.
Very remote.
But what's the difference is parkour. These are things we're going to do every day of your life, walking around. But yet, what comes along with it is still all the value system that is learned through the martial arts, where about respect and integrity and supporting each other as long as you, as well as yourself, and all those things that we want to teach kids and adults and whoever. There's no age for it. But the difference is they're actually using this stuff every day.
Yeah, that's the practical application of all of the things that we learn is like the highlight of it.
Where the kid that comes out of Taekwondo after 4 years, the odds of him having to use some sort of roundhouse back kick on Friday, pretty slim.
Absolutely. Everything is, and that's even in the class, like I said, analyzing why are you going to do a jump? Not only like why are you going to do a jump, but why might you need to be able to jump like this in your life sometime? It's very few and far between that the emergency situation is going to happen to you where you might need some skills like this, but the opportunity to be able to have the confidence of yourself to know that you can, if you need to be strong for a family member or for a friend or for some stranger that might need your help. Maybe it's not you that needs the help. Maybe it's somebody else. And if you're not strong, and if you haven't trained these types of things to be able to do something like get both of your feet off of the ground at the same time, like just this is a major challenge for an adult who hasn't moved or exercised in a while. You get them to bring both feet off of the ground at the same time, and they're scared out of their wits. And
I've seen people standing at that, what was like an 18-inch box.
Yeah.
And you would think they're about to jump across a grand.
Yeah.
The look in their eye.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump up onto that and then off of that.
Yeah. And it's complex. And I think to be able to understand this about yourself, translates everywhere.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, man. In in the lives of kids, man, there's always relationships that kids have that will last forever, and sometimes they'll remember the name and the specific things, and what we always say, kids will, kids are going to forget what the content of what you teach them, but they'll forever remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually they're going to start associating those emotions to the content that you taught them, and it's going to connect within the kid's heart, and they're going to remember the content because of how you made them feel. And the whole thing kind of works crazy like that, but they take this information with them through life. And that's what I love about you and Mandy and Wes, and I don't know the new guy's name who's just been coming.
Ra.
Yeah, man. What's his name?
Ra.
Yeah. Awesome. And that kid's like a puma. Man. That's crazy to watch that dude. And the feeling that these kids leave. Look, I don't know every detail because I'm not in the class, but here's what I know is my kid walks away sweaty, and he walks away feeling good about himself, and he walks away talking to me all the way home about what they learned that day. And he loves it, and dude, and because of that, man, I love you and all that you bring to the lives of those kids, and it's such a beautiful experience.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, let me leave you with this. Here's the last story. So I had to go to a wedding. Ugh, I hate weddings. And I'm with Jones, family goes. Anyway, we pull up to this. There's a church kind of outside of downtown, and we get to the back. We find a parking space in the back of it. And Jones is like, "Oh my God, look at that!" And I'm looking, I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Right there." I'm like,
"Opportunistic."
I go, "What, man?" He goes, "Look at that." Like, I'm like looking.
Yeah.
I'm like, "What?" And I'm what was there, a rat? Is there?
He sees a jump.
And so what it is, he's got it's like a little kind of where you park your car. That it's bigger than the thing that makes you stop. Your wheels will go over it, whatever that thing's called. It's a little bit bigger than that. But then there's this wall, probably 4 feet. And that thing it's about 4 feet away, and it might be maybe 5 feet high.
Nice.
And then above that is this railing that is kind of like a corrugated metal thing, but it's all rounded with handles and with bars on it. He's like, "Oh my God." So there he is, and
I could totally climb that.
there he is, and his because we're at a wedding, so he's got his best jeans on,
right,
his best sneakers, his best shirt, and he's got his clip-on tie, and he gets out of the car and he's like sizing it up, sizing. I said, "All right, man, let's go in, let's get the presents in there, and we'll come back out."
Nice.
And so sure enough, we're in there. We kind of make sure the wedding's not started yet. We still got about 30 minutes before the whole ceremony begins. We go outside, and he just can't wait to attack that thing.
Yeah.
And he runs, he jumps, he does the cat thing where he lands, like sticks to the wall,
Yeah.
and he figures out how to climb himself up to the top rail, and he goes all the way down this thing, and then turns around, so he's got his back now, and so it's like 5 feet down to maybe a little 2 foot thing 6 feet away, and he jumps off and lands hands out, boom, right on the toes.
Yeah, man, that's cool.
Like a cat.
Yeah, he picks up good.
Yeah, and he looks at me, gives me the nod.
Yeah, of course, they want to make sure you see them do it. Yeah. Sometimes they will look at you in midair and
Right.
you're like, don't, that's dangerous. Focus.
And but listen, man, what a story, dude. And when I hear things like this, I just get I know, man, that the thousands of teachers that listen, they're already thinking, man, about a kid they had in their class they're going to check in with, or a kid that's going to walk through, that's going to cross the threshold of the classroom door coming up here in August.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to think, you know what, man, this kid, this silent kid, the one that thinks he's going to get through my class living this anonymous lifestyle, there's no way. Because I'm going to stop that kid at the door. I'm making a connection. I'm going to look him in the eye.
Pull him up.
And I'm going to find out what this kid's life is about. And what I say is I'm putting this kid on my hit list.
Nice. Yeah, there you go.
And
I like that.
I'm writing this kid's name on my 3x5 card. I put it in my wallet. And this kid is not leaving my classroom without getting his life changed.
Yeah.
He's mine.
I like that. Or you can figure out how to get parkour classes in your school.
There you go. Make it easy on everybody. Awesome, brother. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks, Hal.
Dude, awesome. Thanks you for all that you do for kids, and also when you go back, man, give my best to everybody, all those influential adults of influence over at Urban Movement that are changing lives, man. We appreciate it.
Will do. Thanks.
Bring it up top. That's
Later.
how we do it.
All right. Cool.